Okay, good morning. My name is Monica Prophet Osborne. I'm an assistant criminal justice professor here at Montgomery County Community College. I'm actually a shared professor. So that means that during the week, I teach on this campus and I also teach on the Pottstown campus. You're here, we want to thank you for your presence, but you're here to hopefully gain some insight and some knowledge regarding a criminal justice field. And we have an absolute distinction of having individuals here that are able to kind of provide you with the lay of the land in terms of pathways to a criminal justice career. So without any further ado, what I want to do is introduce to you our panelists, and then they're going to provide you with some insight that they've had based upon their collective years of experience in criminal justice. And we want to make sure that you have opportunities to ask questions. And I tell my students in my classes, and I'll tell you as well, there is no question that is a dumb question. And what you want to recognize is that this is an opportunity for you to get those questions answered. It's not often that you're going to have such a distinguished panel in front of you. So feel free to make sure that you ask the questions, because what you don't want is to end up leaving saying, oh, I wish I had asked, or I'm curious about. So this is your opportunity to get those questions answered so that you can figure out what it is that you want to do and make sure that you're on the right path. So, I want to first introduce our panelists. Officer Samuel Boone from the Springfield Township Police Department. Emily Hopkins from the White Marsh Township Police Department. Chief Kenneth Lawson, Whitney Township Police Department. Chief Michael Pitcow from the Springfield Township Police Department. And last but certainly not least, Chief Francis Wheatley from the Upper Pottsgrove. So what we want to do is have each one of our distinguished panels just kind of give you an overview of the pathway that they took to get to the position where they are today, so that you can kind of see what hard work and dedication can do for you. So I'm going to start to my left and then we'll go to the right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, frankly, my journey was a long journey. It probably started where you are. I'm one of 10 kids, no law enforcement background in my family. I sat in middle school, saw some police interaction with some fights in the school, and had an inspiration that this is the career path for me. I wasn't a great student. I came from a family, my dad passed away when I was young, didn't have a lot of structure, went to a VOTEC school. If you go back, back to the 70s, there was height and weight requirements for a police officer. You had to be at least 6 foot tall and a certain weight. And you can look at me and tell you that I am not that big. So there was a lot of challenges in reference to, although I wanted to be a police officer, could I obtain those goals? So my first advice to you is this: if this is the career path you want to be in law enforcement, corrections, EMT, fire, right? Who knows Johnny Cash? What's Johnny Cash's one of his favorite songs? You got a what? I know it's a younger crowd. Johnny Cash is a country singer, talks about walking the line. My biggest challenge as a high school student at VOTEC was the challenges of the high-risk behaviors that you see every day in high school, right? The kids that are engaged in illegal stuff, whether it's drugs, alcohol, right? To become a police officer today, you have to pretty much have a very clean record, right? You have to choose your friends today, who you can hang out with, who make good choices, right? A lot of police officers we see who apply, who put themselves through the police academy, don't get the job because they made bad choices at a young age, right? So if you want this career, pursue your dreams, get your education. I graduated here. I was the first in my family to get a degree. We had no money to go. this was my first step. You know, I wasn't a great student, but I learned. I challenged myself. But if you want it, if you want to serve others, you know, the most honorable career is serving others. This is the pathway. Start here at Monco, walk the line.
Good morning. I'm Sam Boone. I'm an officer at Springfield Township. I've been currently employed at the township for over 20 years now. I'm the first African American officer in my department history, and it's been a pleasure to be an officer in my township for the last 20 years. Prior to that, I was a county sheriff for 6 years, and just some of the responsibilities that I do as a patrolman. I've been a DARE officer. That's a program that I taught for about 8 years. I'm also a traffic safety officer. One of the responsibilities is investigating accidents and crashes and doing things in the community as far as speed enforcement. One of the things I want to challenge you, and I'm glad that you guys have taken the time to be a part of this environment, is that you should be authentic as a person. You should never change who you are. You should be better than you are. You should be listening to the advice that the other panel member is going to give you as far as your character, your ethics, things that are constant but are always evolving and growing, because you're going to represent the law in your communities that we're going to protect and serve. And that's important, like the chief said. Some of the things you're doing now, even as a young person, hanging out with the right crowd, making good decisions. Everything is not internet worthy. Don't put it on the internet. That is becoming a disqualifier for many applicants who are applying for law enforcement. If your character is not what you present on the internet, then unfortunately for us, we're going to find that out as far as what your character is. So be authentic as a person. Be service-minded. If you're a person who's going to work in the community, you have to be service-minded. Being willing to sacrifice, because this is a job that you sacrifice a lot. And you'll sacrifice a lot from your families, from the people you love, but you're giving to the people you're serving. So that's very important. I would say those who are minorities, Hispanic or African American or any other ethnic background, you may be the first in your department or applying for a job. Don't take that as a knock. Take that as a great opportunity to make a difference in the community that you're going to serve. We need good people like you. Service-minded people, people who have the values to work and to protect, right? And I meet some wonderful people who are serving in Springfield Township. It's been great. There's people who admire what you do, and there's people who don't like what you do. But unfortunately, in your job, you have to stand tall in your own skin and do your job to the best of your ability. I will be here for questioning, so if you don't want to ask a question here in the panel, you can ask me sometimes outside. I'll be willing to answer your question. Thanks for having me.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Mike Pitko, Chief of Springfield Township. I work with Officer Boone, and great being back at Montgomery County Community College. I'm also like Chief Wheatley and my academy friend here, Chief Washington with Wayne Township. I'm not the traditional student. I had no plans to get into law enforcement when I was a child. My dream was to be a meteorologist. I was going to be the next Elliot Abrams from Acura. I had no wish to be in police work. But then I got involved with, I didn't go to Penn State main campus. Had I gone to state college, it might have been different. But I was locally in Haddon Township, and I got drawn into public service by joining a volunteer fire company for about 15 years. And I found out there was a police dispatcher test in Springfield Township. Took the test with about 6 other people. And lo and behold, I've been there for over 30 years in policing, rising up through the ranks. So again, what you have to learn from that is you may not know, a lot of folks do know from high school what they want to do as they get into college or tech school, but things can change, and definitely changed with me. And again, it took quite a few police exams to get finally hired. Back in the old days, there were a lot of folks taking police exams, but a lot fewer openings in police work than I'd say right now. We just had a consortium examination here a few weeks ago with 16 departments. And I think we had a total of 318 folks take the police exam. So the trend has been down. But I will say this, there was a lot of scrutiny with law enforcement over the last few years by not only the media and politicians, but that's actually a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. But there seems to be a number of folks, the same numbers are not coming out for police tests, but it is an absolutely fabulous career. You may not be a millionaire being in law enforcement, but I still love going to work every day and serving the community in Springfield Township, as I did when I first started in policing. So we tell our new hires that again, it might take more than one police exam. You might have to test multiple times. Don't get down yourself. Don't give up. Keep taking the exam. And we tell our new folks that if you think you're going to be putting handcuffs on people, like say parts of North Philadelphia, that's not going to be the case. We have crime in Montgomery County. Some areas have more crime, like Norristown and Pottstown, but we are in the community policing. We're here to serve, like Officer Boone says. You'll be doing things like getting keys out of a locked car. Maybe a woman will call about her smoke alarm going off, and how do I silence the alarm on my smoke detector? We are here to help the public. They're going to call us because they don't know who else to call in their time of need. So if you're into that type of service to the community, law enforcement is for you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ken Lawson, Chief of Police here in Whitpain Township. Kind of like Chief Wheatley, I started off really young, come from a big family. I live down in Abington Township. I come from a big family and come from a broken home. And when I was in junior high, I probably ran with the wrong crowd. A lot of bad behavior. And I don't know, something just kicked in. I'm watching my mother work 2 jobs, and I guess working so hard, I saw her do that all the time, how much she wanted me to go to college and do the right thing. So it just kicked in, and I guess my first year I went to Monco. There was only one choice that I could go to. That was to the community college, because there was no money to send me anywhere else. So came here to the community college, excelled in what they call police science then. It was a great course with great instructors. It was just an amazing experience for me. And all of a sudden, I just went from being an average student to being a really good student, because I was doing something that I really loved to do. And I had some great professors here at the college. One I still remember his name, Professor Carroll. He was a former FBI agent. And after I got done my last 2 years here at the college, he called me into his office and he goes, Lawson, what are you going to do? What's your plans? I said, well, I think I'll just go out and try to get a police job now and move on and try to see what happens. Or back then, you really didn't send yourself to the academy like you can now. And he pulled out of his drawer, he pulled an application for Westchester University. And he goes, I want you to fill out this application for Westchester and continue your education, get your 4-year degree. And he sat there and helped me fill it out, because I didn't have anybody else help me fill it out. My parents were working all the time. They didn't have the time. So he helped me fill it out, helped me apply for some aid. And I went to Westchester University because of that professor. And I graduated with almost all straight A's. Soon after that, I started taking the test and doing well. I got hired here in Whitpain Township over 30 years ago. So it's kind of surreal. I came full circle. Now I did all that hard work, and now I'm the police chief where the community college is. And so that was my journey. If you work hard, you look ahead, and you do something that you really care about, that you're really passionate, you're going to succeed. And law enforcement is so good because it's really is about helping people. It's about making a difference in your own community. Some people don't always think that, but that's why 95% of the police officers take the job, is because they want to make a difference. They want to help people every day. And this is one of the best jobs to do that with. So we're here to answer questions, and I'll take more questions later. Thank you.
I'm certainly Hopkins. I'm White Marsh Township Police. My career has not been as extended as all these gentlemen to my left. I've been a police officer for about 6 years. Before that, I was a paralegal for a couple different law firms. I did go to college. I did plan on being a police officer. My big brother is a police officer, so kind of followed suit that I wanted to be like my big brother. I'll probably be picking off of what some of you guys already said about being a cop. Honestly, it's about finding balance. The police job is not as black and white as it may seem, especially on TV. That's not what it is. You have to be able to stand tall, like Officer Boone said, in your own skin. And, you need to make decisions on your feet a lot of the time. But the reason I became a cop was because I wanted to do the right thing. And that's kind of a big part of what this is. So this is the path for you. This is something you want to do. That's something that will always follow suit in every call you get. You want to do the right thing. You want to be a good person. Because that's kind of where it starts. That's how we build community relationships, regardless of who you are, color of your skin, whether you're a guy or a girl. It comes with doing the right thing and just being able to not just be fearless almost in that nature. A lot of these guys kind of already touched on everything I would have liked to say, but if this is something you want to do, it's going to take hard work. It's going to take a lot of preparation, mental, physical. You are a cop on and off duty. Unfortunately, you're going to see things that you've never seen before, and then you're going to notice it when you're not at the job. But doing this job, preparing yourself for something like this, if this is what you want to do, you got to work hard. So like these gentlemen said, we're here to answer any questions you guys might have about being, a younger officer like me in terms of I've only had 6 years on. Not to say these guys don't have plenty to tell you also, but, hopefully if this is something you want to do, you can ask us whatever you want. All right?
And before we open questions to the floor, I have a couple of questions myself. Not to pick on you, as my students say, not to put you on blast, but Officer Hopkins, can you just give some information or perspective in terms of being a female police officer?
Sure. I'll do my best. I'm only one of 3 officers, actually, at White Marsh, who are female. It's, to be, I guess, plain and simple, it can be a challenge. I go on calls all the time where maybe they're expecting a larger man to take a call. So you do find some adversity in how to deal with different people and how, their perception of a female officer might be. But you kind of have to have bark, I guess. You kind of have to be prepared to take that. You're going into an uncomfortable situation, maybe like public speaking or anything like that. But it's a challenge every day. It's not something that isn't going to change. Obviously, we kind of find ourselves in time where we're kind of moving more towards the female front, where you're seeing more female officers, you're seeing more female everything, really. But you take it with a grain of salt and you kind of keep fighting. All right.
And for all of the panelists, I have 2 other questions, and then we'll let the students speak. Number one, we unfortunately are in a climate where there are some people who view law enforcement in a negative light. Being married to someone who's been in law enforcement for 33 years, I sometimes become very disillusioned with some members of society that view officers negatively. Can you just explain to our audience your perspective and how you deal with negative feedback or pushback that you get from the community? And any one of you can address. Don't all jump up.
It's a complicated career path. You deal with so much of dysfunction. You deal with people who are in desperate situations. Police are put in making life and death decisions, split-second decisions. Like the military, we train for these scenarios, but these are life and death decisions at times. We're not perfect, all right? But here's the reality, at least from my perspective, is that every day, 24/7, across this country, law enforcement's out there doing their job. And you only hear about the 0.5% of bad law enforcement, where a trained officer makes a mistake, shoots someone who's unarmed, maybe because he's human and he feared, he's scared, who knows what the reasons were. But this is broadcast across the country and around the world about bad law enforcement. But in reality, day in and day out across this country, 99% of people we deal with are taken in custody, arrested without incident. That's an amazing figure if you think about it, right? But with that said, right, we have to hold our law enforcement officers accountable. No questions asked. If we make a mistake, an officer uses excessive force, we, the chiefs, the community, expect people to be held accountable. We should be held accountable. That's your job as residents. If you don't believe we did something right, you were mistreated by the police, you should speak up. Go to a supervisor. Ask. We have video now. Everything we do is video. And let me just conclude with this. It's been a tough career in law enforcement from the start of law enforcement. Society is now seeing us up close and personal because of cameras, right? These things have been going on for decades and decades, right? Cameras, whether it's from the police side in our cars or body cameras, are making us better, right? It's a liability. The cops at times think it's a bad thing to have cameras, but 90% of the time, these cameras actually are good for law enforcement. They show the good police work. So just what you see on the news media at that time is very sad. There should be justice when the police are out of line, and you should have a voice.
My other question goes directly to something that Officer Boone stated. We often teach in our classes about the impact of your juvenile behavior and how it has long-reaching effects. And often I get a response from students that suggest, oh, well, my understanding is I can do anything that I want to when I'm a juvenile because it won't be held against me, even if I get arrested and have, a matter resolved in juvenile court. And I try to explain, Professor Sampson, I try to explain to our students that that simply is not the case. If you're trying to get to law enforcement, you need to be living an exemplar life. So if you all could just expand a little bit more, because I think with such young faces in the audience, it certainly is not, wrong, or I don't know if that's the right word, but we can't stress it enough, the importance of what you're putting on social media, who you're hanging out with, what you're doing, because at the end of the day, what you do in the dark comes to light. So from perhaps the chief's perspective, maybe you can speak to what you're looking for in terms of young officers that are trying to apply for positions within your township police departments.
So you heard me talk about this earlier, about when I was a juvenile, I went around a pretty rough crowd. I changed that cycle out. So you have to do that. Earlier the better. You have to find the right good friends that have your same values, same commitment in life. So when we look at background of a potential police officer, we go way back. We really look into the person because what's more important to me is not how well you do on a test, how well you just score a 95 on a test, or how well, but it's how much passion you have, for the job, and how much you care about the job. And part of that is having a good background, because if I can look back 5-10 years to see that you've been a good person and you've been taking the right steps to become a police officer, that's important. That's really important. And we look into everything. We look into social media. We talk to your neighbors. We pull your financial records. We'll see everything. We go through lie detector tests, polygraph tests, all those things. All that stuff that you did comes out. And that will disqualify you faster than not doing well on a test. So it's really important to start that good behavior now, because it shows us as chiefs of police and police officers that you really wanted this job, that you were able to change your friends or do the right things and step your way right into the law enforcement. Because we have to know that, past behavior is often a predictor of future behavior. So if you don't do good in high school and college, how can I think that you're going to be a good police officer 5 years, 10 years down the road? You'll be doing the same things you did in college. And we just, as a police officer, you just can't ever break the law.
Okay, so now we'll open the floor to any questions that you may have, either as an overview for the panelists or a specific panel member. Yes, sir.
Officer Hopkins, what was your favorite thing you've done on the job?
I'm sorry?
What was your favorite thing you've done on the job?
One more time, say it again.
What was your favorite thing you've done on the job?
My favorite thing
Yeah.
about the job? I think my favorite thing about the job is that I get to be outside all the time. You're in your vehicle, you're going around the community, you're interacting with the entire community. I think pretty much that's my favorite thing. Interacting with the community, kind of being involved, getting outside, you're not stuck in a cubicle or anything. That's also a big aspect. That's something you guys really want to do is be an officer. You're going to be in all the elements all the time. So, probably what I like. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, young lady.
So again, for you, I guess in general, how much does the gear weigh? Because you look like a smaller person, but like underneath the shirt, like I can see your vest. Like how much? It's a lot of heavy gear. Like I know the duty belt is heavy on it, so like,
Yeah, I'd say,
it's got to get
if I had
exhausting.
to estimate, I'd say about 20,
Not that much, probably about
15.
15, 10, 15.
It's gotta be like
Do you get used to carrying that around on
You
your
do.
body all day?
a little while, but find a good chiropractor and you're good to go.
Thank you. Right here.
Where could we buy the vest you're wearing? That we want to wear to school.
Well, generally, they're not, you can actually get those, but, unless you have a reason to have a vest, it's something that generally the general public does not purchase, right? It's usually used for, military, law enforcement, professionals.
Okay.
Generally speaking.
I got it.
Yes.
I think for the students that are considering law enforcement, through Montgomery County, we can pare it down. Job requirements for either college, 2 years of college, 4 years of college, Act 120. I know it varies per police department. So for the police chiefs, what do you think the majority of the departments are going towards? Having that Act 120, having some college, a combination of both. In general, I know everybody's departments are a little different, but what are your basic requirements or something like that as an entry-level applicant?
In Springfield, we used to require 60 college credits. And then,
All of which can be gotten through Montgomery County College.
and then we've shifted to being had to be an academy, Montgomery County or Temple University Academy graduate, or at least enroll in the academy. And I believe that you still get 15 credits if you apply to Montgomery County Academy, 15 credits for an associate's degree here at Montgomery County Community College. And that's what we still have. But I know in our county, there's a shift going on right now to relax that and have the police departments sponsor the new officer through the academy. They would Bay Township change that. So that is a trend to get more folks applying for the job, to offer to send them like we did back in the day. We were such a Pennsylvania State Police Academy, and that's where it's heading this direction now.
We're definitely opening it up. We want more applicants to apply, so we're making it less difficult. We're not requiring Act 120 anymore, and we're relaxing our college credits too.
That's not just follow up also. I think it's for such a young crowd here. The reality, how old do you have to be a police officer? Most departments will say at least 21. So what happens after high school? What are we looking for, right? So we talk to students about the importance of maybe if you're able to go to college, that's great. If not, some type of career path. Think about, law enforcement, security, whatever it might be. It's all about building resumes and having relationships. Is there someone that we can call, pick the phone up and say, hey, do you know John is a good employee? The reality, if you ask me the average age of a person we hire to become a police officer has to be between 23 to 25 years of age. You should keep that in mind, right? So what we're seeing from a lot of young adults is that they graduate high school, maybe they go off to college, get a career, they'll put themselves through the Montgomery County Police Academy or one of the police academies where they'll pay for themselves. But we still need some work experience, so again, if you keep in perspective that the average age, just saying average age for a full-time position in Montgomery County is probably around 23 to 25 years of age. Now, it doesn't mean you don't get a job maybe in the summertime down at a Short Point as a police officer. Doesn't mean you don't get a job maybe with SEPTA Police Department at 21 or on a college campus, like Chief was mentioning. There's some other options. So, it's a long journey, to be a police officer. It's a long journey, and it doesn't happen after high school, and doesn't even happen right after college. You know, it depends on your background and what you're doing. So you got to keep pursuing, building your resume, building relationships.
So just as the advisor, one of the criminal justice fire science coordinator here for those of you who are very concrete learners who are like, well, what's the path, right? So let me give you some examples. You graduate from the tech school, you graduate from high school. You are not 21. You cannot carry a gun. Because you cannot carry a gun, you cannot be hired by any police department in the state. So your path is one of two. One, right after you graduate from high school, you come to Montgomery County Community College and you major in criminal justice. You graduate, you now have the requisite credits, but you are still not 21. You then join the academy, the police academy, if you'd like, and do your Act 120. Or you can come out of high school, go into the police academy, get your 15 credits, which we then apply here towards the total credits that you need for your associates. Now you graduate, you're still not quite 21, right? You're close, but you're not quite. But that doesn't mean at that point that you could not now start to get some type of job. In dispatch, always looking for folks in dispatch. I just talked to Eileen Bear. She was the speaker for today. We've had a student who graduated from Monco, got a job at Drexel University dispatch. Because he was employed there, he was now able to go to Drexel University for free, right? So don't discount positions before you get into your police career that can get you there through experience and other things while you're waiting to turn 21. But you need to be busy between high school and 21, i.e. get your education. The other thing to think about is what you want to do after you become a police officer within your career as a police officer. Because I believe that all of these gentlemen and ladies will attest that if you have the bachelor's and now you apply for lieutenant, and now you apply for detective, and now you apply for other advanced positions within policing, having the bachelor's can be helpful because you are now looking into leadership positions. So you need to be forward thinking. If you are not interested in a career at the county level, you can go to the state level. The state police do not require you to have the Act 120. You can go into the state police and they do their training there. And that's a whole other career path as well. So there is a path. Make sure you talk to an advisor here at Montgomery County Community College or come to me. I'll be happy to map out a path for you of things that you need to do before you turn 21 so that you are ready to apply. There was a hand up.
Yes.
Suppose that you want to do something while you're being a police officer, like an actor or an author. Like, is there a way you can do both?
I'll answer that. I said earlier about being who you are. You can use your other skills to help you in law enforcement. I'm a high school basketball official and football official. I travel all over the place doing games. It keeps me in shape. That's one of the things that I pride myself as an officer, how I look at my uniform, how I do my job. Stressful job. It's a big part. So if you're in shape, you can deal with that stress much better. So if you have other skills that you can use, yeah, it helps you. Being a community officer, you can use all those skills to talk to people. Those are conversation pieces. You'd be surprised when I do presentations, reading books to kids in school. Talk about other things about yourself, about being a dad, being a wife, or whatever it may be, as your own personal life. That comes in effect in doing your job. Because now you're relatable to people, not distance.
So one quick comment in reference to Professor was mentioning. Any explorers in here? Explorer post. Yes. Right. How do you build your resume as a high school student? There's programs out there. There's law enforcement explorer posts. The city of Philadelphia runs. There's some in Montgomery County, Norristown, right, where you can get involved with explorer posts, which give you an up close and personal view of the police work. You'll interact with police officers. You'll see where they train. You'll see the dispatch centers. So I was an explorer. I mean, I knew early on, as I mentioned, as a junior high, I knew what I wanted. right? So you have to find the ways to build your resume, right? Moved me into a relationship with the Upper Dublin Township where I became a police dispatcher. They get to know who I was. Montgomery County 911 Center is hiring. They're looking for qualified people. That's another great spot where you would see and work and hear with emergency services. So there's many different ways to get here, but it's qualifying with background and good career paths that show good resumes.
And I just want to follow up that after you get your associates, you can then transfer directly to any of our brother or sister colleges. It's seamless. You will come in as a junior. And I just remember that because I see Alvernia, right? Albright College here, representing because they have a criminal justice degree. So you graduate from Monaco, you're still not 21, and you go to Albright, you get the 4-year degree, and now you're close to 21. You're about there. For some people, the path is, I now have my bachelor's degree, I go to the academy, or they already went to the academy, and now they have their bachelor's, and so now they're ready to apply to any of the municipal police forces. I know you wanted to add.
Are there opportunities for high school students or college students for internships?
Yeah, we actually, in our department, we had 3 interns last summer. One was 3 weeks for college credit. So they get 3 credits. I've already got a young man from Penn State University. He's a sophomore this year. He lives in our township, and we're going to have him in over the summer for another probably 3 to 4 week period. He's going to receive college credits, and we show him what we do every day. He rides with the officers. He works with our detective division, and it really, he's already told me since he had the initial 1 week deal in his freshman year that there's no doubt in his mind he wants to be a police officer now. He's a criminal justice major at Penn State. So we're looking forward to having him, and we'll probably get at least another internship coming in this summer also. I'm sure the other departments have similar guidelines.
I just asked because internships are a great way for townships, for communities to know how you are as an employer. A lot of interns go from being an intern to when that job opens, they're going to hire you because they know how good you are at the job that you do, and they know how well you're going to do in there. They know you as a person. There's no question about it. They've worked with you. They've seen exactly what it is you can do and can't do. So if you apply for that job after being an intern, you're going to get that job better than someone just coming in off the street.
One of the other things I'll say to add to that is in some of the classes that we teach here on the college, the project toward the end of the semester is for students to do a ride-along. So they will identify a township or a municipality that they want to do a ride-along with, and they, get the opportunity to meet the chiefs of police, the officers, and ride along with them for a period of time. Usually it's at least a half a shift or a full shift. Now, of course, those that come back and say, well, I didn't get to shoot anybody or anything of that nature. That's not what it's about. It's an opportunity for you to see how it is to be an officer, because as Chief Wheatley said earlier, it's not about necessarily going and engaging in aggressive behavior. It's about serving the community. And so riding along with the police gives you a perspective of what you don't necessarily see in the movies, on TV, or hear about in the news. It shows you that these are individuals who, above all, want to serve and be a part of their community. Now, one of the things that I did want to ask, is there a residency requirement for you all's departments to serve there? I know some people have that.
When I was hired, they had this 10-mile radius. It's map, and there's a big circle in there. They said you cannot live outside the 10-mile radius. And so I was there for a number of years, and finally starting a family, I purchased a house about 11 and a half, 12 miles outside the radius. I went to the chief of police. Is there any way you can kind of just expand that radius? And it was different back then because you didn't have the cell phone and pager technology. So most departments now do not have the residency requirement. They have to live in Upper Pottsville with Springfield Township.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Why did you guys want to become police officers?
Why did you become police officers?
I think wait, if you got
what we said kind of before, I think we really all want to make a difference in our community and it's really about, and it sounds cliche, is to help people make a difference. I couldn't think of a better way to, she said, we're always out in the public. I'm not in an office. It's something, our job changes every day. It's not like going into an office and you're sitting in a cubicle and you're doing the same thing every day. Police work, you never know what you're going to get. You go in and it's the best job that there is, because every time the call comes, it's going to be a little bit different than the call you had before. And that freedom and that ability to be out there outside in the patrol car is just one of the best things that you can do. And you also get to meet people, talk to people, and if you're a people person, and if you're not a people person, you soon become it, because the job trains you how to talk to people all the time. That's what you're doing. You're talking to people, you're out to the public, and that's what I love about it.
It's almost like a call too. Like for those who have religion, you have a call. You want to serve people. You want to help people. It's a difference maker. It's just something innately about you that you stand tall because you want good and order. And service, that's all encompassed together. So you will know in your heart, hey, this is what I want to do. Every day is a different thing. One of the things they always talk about in the academy is the greatest show on earth. You're seeing everything in the front row. You're there to help serve people. So you know innately. And sometimes you may not know that right away. You may go to college and you may do some other career things like I did. I was in retail management and did that for 5 years. And left retail management and say, I want to be a police officer. Right? So it's something innately will spark. I'm glad that you guys are learning that now. You have that interest, that spark, that we can get that next generation of powerful men and women that's going to change all our communities, because you believe in law and you believe in order.
Yes, sir.
This is for the three chiefs. What is the major differences and challenges from when you three started your careers years ago to the way you have to run your departments today, whether it's technology, society itself?
I mean, the technology is definitely better. We all started in there where we all paper reports. Like I think at times still being done down in the city of Philadelphia. But now the technology has improved, but not only the laptops are required. Still radio dispatch, but we do a lot of work on a laptop. And the technology of the radios is much improved. I think what's a little bit different though is when we were hired, it was pretty much we were told what to do and don't ask any questions. Just and do our jobs. We're now, whether it's a millennial type situation, we have a lot of the younger officers now ask more questions. So I think we're kind of transitioning to that where we have to explain things a little bit differently to new officers coming on board than when we started. Three of us up here as chiefs. Back when we were just told that don't ask too many questions, just do your job and you'll get along fine. So we're seeing that. I will say this: there's definitely most of the panelists said that. When I was hired, if you went to college, you were like, I wouldn't say an outcast, but they looked at you like, you're going to college for it. You can have all the college you want, but you probably will lack common sense. I thought at that point, there's no way I'm going to stop at the associate's degree. I'm going to continue on my studies. So I was not really a traditional student. I was an older student. And the importance of education, we can't stress it enough. And if you look at our department right now, the majority of the officers at the minimum have 60 college credits, and quite a few have bachelor's and even master's degrees. I think that's probably countywide. The trend is more education now. And I think that's good because I think it makes for more well-rounded officers.
I would say, I'm sorry.
We have 9 minutes left.
The technology is the biggest thing that we have going, and also transparency. We have to remain transparent, and all the departments are accredited now. We have to follow the rules and policies and procedures set up by the state with accreditation. So that process is constantly a difficult process, but it makes us a more professional organization and police officers more professional.
The professional standards by far you started, the policies we have are in the hundreds, and the requirements for the professional standards is so different. The technology is really another part. But I just want to, before you get out of here, it's not cops. It is not what you see on TV. They fast forward and show things that happen every 6 months. In reality, police work. If you're not a good student, police work is data entry. Here's the reality. It's about report writing. Every person you touch or have interaction with, you're writing a report. If you're not good on paper, if you don't have good sentence structures, you're not going to be a police officer today, right? And this is the expectation today. So the education is so important. Every cell phone that was stolen, the lost dog, the accident, you are writing sentences and paragraphs that have to make sense. You have to be a good, good in writing, period. So if you're not a good speller, you got to get better at it. If you're not good in sentence structures, we're not going to want you, right? And then you talk to the officers. It's all about report writing, day in and day out. That's what you do more than anything else.
Cases can be won or lost on a bad report.
Absolutely.
And we as defense attorneys have won some cases. This was ambiguous in the police report. My client is now not guilty because you couldn't figure out verb tense agreement, which your teachers talked about every day ad nauseum, but you just blew it off because you figured someone else would do it. Not going to happen. I love that Officer Boone talked about being in retail because the chief and I, earlier out in the foyer, I was saying, if you don't like retail, if you say right now, oh, I can't stand dealing with people, don't be a police officer. It's retail on steroids. It's retail on steroids. You're seeing everything. So if you're sitting there right now thinking, oh, I'd love to be a police officer, and you can't do retail, and that's the job you have now at Target, don't do it. You're not good with people. You're not. And it's a people job. And you're not going to make it. You're the training's going to be difficult because you have to be decent with dealing with people. So I love Boone went from retail into being a police officer. Every skill that he had, he used, and then some. Right? You want to talk about some of those skills that you have translated?
The retail thing, it's a great job. You're meeting people, they come in and buy, and I can sell you some shoes, I'll sell you an outfit, put a suit on you. But now I got to deal with a death of a family member as a police officer. I got to deal with maybe a child didn't do something, parents called the police. Go from A to Z, when you deal with people. You got to be able to smile with them. You got to be able to give them a pat, give them some dap, whatever it may be. You got to get them through that moment. That is difficult, but also you can be someone who I just gave a ticket and they're shaking my hand. I appreciate your service, officer. Not that I gloat in that, but I appreciate you giving me a compliment. Right? So you're changing the world one person at a time, one moment at a time. Not the big headlines you get, but it's the little moments. Officer told me today, someone said hello, and he said, by the way, I'm staying out of trouble. What a compliment.
We're mentors in many ways. Mentors, customer service is what we do.
Let me just, before we close out, let me just follow up on something that Professor Sampson said. Both of us were criminal defense attorneys in excess of 25 years. And we may not have had a case where we thought it was winnable, but based upon a review of your report, I could find something in it that allowed me to challenge the credibility based upon what was written there, and that may have been what won the case for me, for him. So I say that to highlight the fact that it is important from your perspective. If you know that you have arrested somebody that did something that was improper, you want to make sure you dot all your I's and cross all your T's, because there's going to be an attorney at some point who's going to be cross-examining you based upon something you filled out about 6 months ago or a year ago. So just make sure that you're focused on your report writing as well as what you're doing out there on the street.
And the other thing is thinking. I think one of the chiefs talked about how the question was how things have changed, and they would originally just do what I tell you to do. Me and Professor Osborne are heavy on critical thinking because most of you are reacting to life. How do we know that? Because on the due date, you don't have it. You have an excuse. And then you'll say something to us and well, just listen. We'll listen to your whole spiel. And then we'll say, it was due, it's now a 0 as per the syllabus. And you'll have all sorts of excuses, but you will claim that you were thinking. You were not. You were reacting. Your father or mom, your grandma said, be home at 4 o'clock. You cruised it at 4:15, and they go, what happened? And you said, well, I didn't think. Exactly, you weren't thinking. They want thinking. They want thinking. Some of you are sitting here right now. You haven't turned it in. It was late. You had an excuse. Oh, it was a good one. It was fantastic. Professor Osborne, I have heard every excuse. Everybody has died. Trust me. Every grandmother's been killed by the end of the semester. Every gerbil has died. Every cat didn't make it. Something died. Some funeral. I always ask, was that the cousin that you haven't seen since you were 10? Is that the funeral you're going to this class? You have to be able to think. And right now you're reacting. I'm observing a lot of you right now. You're just reacting. You're not thinking. You're not even present in the room. Your mind has wandered to something else. Let your mind wander as a police officer and somebody could get killed. Your fellow officer could get killed. The person you are helping could get killed because your mind wandered to your cell phone and something else that you thought at the moment was more important. It was not. What was important for you to be present in that moment. And when your commanding officer tells you something to do and the way to do it, they're doing that because they know it will save your life and the life of a fellow officer with whom you may be working. So this is not a job that you just like, blah, 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 blah. No, we're not going to Disney. So if you're not getting it in on time now, see, and I remember that. I always like, are you going to pull me over and become a police officer? And you couldn't get a single assignment in on time?
Okay, and on that note, any other questions? You all have been a wonderful audience.
Before we move, I do have some instructions for them.
Sure.
So really quickly, you all are thinking about getting ready to probably go back to school. But before you do, we certainly invite you to check out the exhibitors that are here in this building on your way out, as well as in the academic quad area. There are some other exhibitors. Then you will head back into Park House Hall from where we came. Are we all good there with the instructions? All right, take that. Thanks for being here.
Well, we're gonna have lunch at 12, and the lunch is coming at 12. So make sure you guys check out this area over
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for coming out today. My name is Matt Point, like this. I'm the coordinator for admissions and dual enrollment here, and I'm the liaison to all the tech schools in Montgomery and Chester County. So you're all from TCHS, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming out today. We're excited to have you on our campus. I hope you got to speak to a lot of people. One thing I want to point out to you while you're here is that I hope you got to speak to a lot of different departments that are represented, different law enforcement organizations that are here. I know how to fix that. But what I want you to do is raise your hand if you're a senior, junior, sophomore, anyone? All right.
Sorry.
So, I'm not going to touch it because it's not doing anything. All right. So, when you're talking to people today, ask them what they did to be where they are now. So my degree is in Spanish education, and I'm obviously not teaching Spanish. One of my best friends from undergrad, who was also a Spanish major, lives in Baltimore and is a special agent in the FBI. So she is obviously not teaching Spanish as well. So when you meet people today or you go from table to table, ask them what they did. Ask them what they wanted to be when they grow up, and ask them how they got to where they are now. They're really excited to share their stories with you. But the one thing I wanted to tell you about is we have our free campus open houses coming up. This Saturday, if you're interested in cooking, or if you're like me and you're interested in eating, come join us at the Culinary Arts Institute for our campus open house at 10 a.m. The one I wanted to point out to you is next Saturday, April 13th at our West Campus in Pottstown. You guys all go to Brandywine, right? Yeah. So about 25 minutes from you guys. You can go there. We have our campus open house at 10 a.m. You can see the whole campus, meet a lot of faculty and staff. And then we have our last one here on Saturday, April 27th. We have a table for information that's outside here. If you want to get some information about dual enrollment, or if you're a junior or sophomore and you want to potentially take classes that count towards high school graduation requirements, but also earn college credit next year, I can give you some information about that, but I can also get you registered to attend the open house. If you are a senior, we're going to be doing $500 book scholarship raffles at all of the open houses. You are eligible at every one that you attend. So if you are interested, please come out, sign up with us to come to one of the open houses, whether it's CAI or the Pottstown campus right here in Bluebell, so we can get you registered so that you can be in the raffle for a full scholarship. Once again, thank you so much for coming out today. Oh, let me see. Oh, no. Okay, thank you so much for coming out today. Please ask questions. Please meet people. They're excited to share their stories with you. Ask them what they did. Ask them where they went to school. Ask them what they studied, because I think you'll be really surprised about how people get to where they are today. Thank you and have a great day, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Monica Prophet Osborne, and I'm a criminal justice professor here at the college, and I will be your moderator for today's session. The first thing that I do want to mention is that this is being broadcast across the campus live. So just keep that in mind in terms of formulating questions, so if they are politically, no curse words, basically. So just keep that in mind. I will do my best when questions are asked of you or by you to repeat the questions so that our audience outside of this room is able to understand what's being asked and responded to. As we move forward, essentially the platform or the format that we're going to follow is I'm going to introduce to you all of our panelists for this morning. And then once I step back, they will provide you with an overview of their pathway to where or how they got to where they are now. So again, in keeping with the theme of pathways to a criminal justice career, they're going to probably lay out for you the different or similar pathways that they have taken. Once we've had an opportunity to hear from each one of our panelists, we want to hear from you. We want you to ask questions. This is your opportunity to ask questions. It's not often that you have such distinguished guests before you where you can ask questions that are either burning or searing inside of you. We know that a great number of you anticipate going into law enforcement as far as your career. So this is the time to ask the questions that you may not have been able to ask someone who would have the information from direct experience. So without further ado, I will introduce our panelists. Immediately to my right is Officer Nicolette DiBiazzo. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay, and she is an officer with the East Norriton Township Police Department. Next, we have Lieutenant Mark, right? Okay, Lieutenant Mark Freeman of the Upper Providence Township Police Department. Next, we have Chief Mark Talbot from the municipality of Norristown Police Department. And last but certainly not least, we have Training Coordinator Mary Ann Longo of the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety Emergency Communications. So bear with us, and we'll start Did anyone want to start in particular, or want to start from left to right? Okay, so we'll start with Ms. DiBiase or Officer DiBiase, who will explain to you her career path to get her to the point where she is today. Thank you.
So as Ms. Monica stated, I'm from East Norton Township Police Department. I went to Phoenixville High School and I took a forensics class, and that's what really sparked my interest in law enforcement. From that point, I got a job as a security officer where I met and became friends with a lot of police officers in Limerick Township. And they kind of guided me as far as what to do next. So I went to college. I actually went to Montco. I got my associate's degree here, and during that time, I got an internship with the sheriff's department. So that gave me a different aspect of a law enforcement career, if you will. From there, I went to the police academy, which was also through Montco. Once I graduated, I became a police officer at Westchester University, and then Schuylkill Township, which is in Phoenixville. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. And then East Norton. So I've been a police officer for a total of about 5 years now. I'm now on highway patrol, so I ride a motorcycle, something I'm very proud of. That's where I'm at.
Thank you.
My name is Lieutenant Mark, and I work for Providence Township. My pathway actually was kind of skewed in the beginning. I originally thought that I was going to do this celebrity chef back in the early 80s or late 80s. A lot of celebrity chefs just started coming out. I figured, I'm going to be a chef, I run my own restaurant. And when I told my dad about that, he was a little disappointed. My dad was a police officer. And not disappointed that he didn't support whatever I chose. It just that he thought, I think you'd be a good police officer. But, I support you with, in the chef world. It wasn't until I was working in a restaurant and I was in the kitchen and one of the staff comes running in and said, anybody know CPR? I don't know, but I'm nosy, so I'm just going to go out and see what's going on in the dining room. And there was a man laying on the ground, and people were trying to, make him comfortable. Apparently he was having a heart attack. And 2 police officers came in. And when I tell you, they look like Marines in their dress blues or dress whatever, they just look sharp. And they took control, they helped the individual. And I remember vividly that day thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to be able to help other people and have the knowledge to do so. Within 6 months, I entered the police academy. Of course, my dad was a staff. So after the police academy, which was in 1990, jobs were very difficult to get, but part-time police officer jobs were a little easier. So I got a few part-time jobs, and kind of gotten to know full-time officers from different agencies and getting their input on where I should go, where I should apply. And by 1991, in December, Upper Providence calls and says, hey, we're hiring. Are you still interested? And I said yes, and I've been there ever since. After I got hired in Upper Providence, I decided to go to Montgomery for a criminal justice degree. I was going off and on. And what's nice about my current agency is they actually pay for you to go to college. So I think a lot of agencies do. Our agency pays 100%. The only thing I had to pay for were actual books. So I took full advantage of that. I got my associates, my undergrad, and my graduate all paid for by my township. And it was through St. Joe's University. My career internally has been every rank in between patrolman and my current rank of lieutenant, which is in my agency is second in command of the police department. And so it's been a great ride, and enjoying every minute.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Talbot. I'm the police chief in Norristown, Pennsylvania. I've been there just about 5 years. I started my career in policing back in the early 90s. I wanted to be a police officer since I was about that high. Not that high off the table, but that high off the floor. Since I was about 5 or 6 years old, I wanted to be a police officer. I think my story is a little bit more mundane. I was walking with my mom one day and upset about something that I don't even remember at this point. I was probably 5 years old. And as I crossed the street, the one black police officer in my town at that point, who was actually still there, he went on to become the mayor of my small town that I grew up in, Chester County. He bent down and asked me what's wrong. I have a vivid memory of him asking me what my issue was. And as I said, I had no idea what it was, but that little act of kindness is the reason why I wanted to be a police officer. I knew from that moment, right, just as a little kid, that I wanted to be a cop. So I graduated from high school. I ended up working in corrections for several years before I became a police officer. I studied organizational leadership at Penn State University. Similar to the lieutenant, a lot of my education was paid for by my police departments. I actually retired from my first police department. One of the benefits from policing is you can retire fairly young. So I retired from the first police department that I was in the city of Reading about 7 years ago. And then I took over as police chief in Norristown at the end of 2013. Been there since that point. Anybody who wants to be a police officer, it is the hardest job that there is, and there's no job that's better. Right? It's the one opportunity, or one of the very few opportunities to have in society to save people's lives. Right? I say to the police officers that work with me that our job is, a lot of times you'll hear a police officer say what you're supposed to do. The most important thing is you get home at the end of your tour duty. All right, here's the most important thing. Everybody gets home safely at the end of the tour duty, right? You don't leave anybody behind. Our job is about saving people's lives, and I think this is one of a very few professions where you get to do that. So thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to you.
My name is Marianne Longo. I am the Assistant Training Coordinator for the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety, otherwise known as the 911 Center. So my story isn't as, my story is really boring actually, and it happened by accident, literally by accident. I was driving home late one night and I smashed into a telephone pole. I was flown subsequently to the University of Pennsylvania. I rehabilitated. And one of the ambulance attendants that was on my call that night was at the time a bank customer of mine. I was in the finance industry. And he said, okay, time for you to get back. So I got involved. I went to EMT school. I started volunteering in the community. And back in the early 90s, and a couple of you guys might remember, but our center started the 911 call center. We actually started answering 911 calls. And there was an ad in the newspaper. Not that you guys get the newspapers anymore, but there was an ad that they were hiring 25 people to answer 911 calls. And I jumped on it. It was something that I wanted to do. I never had an interest in being in fire services. I didn't want to run into buildings where animals were coming out of because they didn't want to be in there. I enjoyed saving lives on the ambulance, but I wanted to do more. So I applied for the job. I was one of about 100 people that had applied for the job, and I had gotten the job. Back then, our training was basically 4 weeks. We learned certain certifications that we had to take, and then we were turned out. And then they turned on the 911 system, literally turned it on. Right in the beginning of July, and we started answering 911 calls. We make a difference every day in our job. We answer calls for people whose spouse, child, brother, sister, family member isn't breathing. We give life-saving instructions. We deliver babies on the side of the road before the ambulance or the police officers can sometimes get there. The most important and most valuable thing that I do at night or on my shift when I'm out on the floor on the radio is I make sure that these guys go home every day. They get to go home to their families because I get to go home to my family every day. But my job is to make sure that they get home safely. If something happens, I send them help, or we all send them help. So my career path has been a little bit, I started here at the Community College General Studies because I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Still not really sure what I want to be when I grow up. I have a degree in business administration and human resources. I transitioned out of the 911 call center. I still dispatch when we're needed, but I'm responsible now for recruitment, training of the new hires that come in. It's now anywhere between a 9 and 12-week program that's paid for by the county. And we teach you how to answer the calls, how to dispatch the police, how to give CPR instructions, how to assist people with naloxone, things along those lines. So it's a 9 to 12-week paid program. The county has some really awesome benefits. We partner with the community college so that if you're in school and you're taking a class through the community college, you pay for your first class, and the second class is free. Okay, that's a huge value. With that, with your first class that you pay for, as long as you maintain a C or better, because you always want to be better, 75% of your tuition is reimbursed, including your books. So that's huge. And that's up to $3,000 a year. So a lot of our telecommunicators, especially on night shift, will be going to school and they'll be doing stuff online. And they're getting paid to work and they're getting their education paid for at the same time. So if you don't find that you have a passion for law enforcement, which there's nothing wrong with that, or if you're not sure which direction you want to go to, and you feel like you want to help somebody, I would suggest dipping your feet in with us. People that I work with all have a passion for the job. They love the job they do. I love the job I do. I've been doing it since 1993, and I can't imagine doing anything else. So that's my story.
Okay, so before we open the panel up to questions from you all, I have a couple of questions that I'll direct to our panel members. For Officer DiBiase, can you just give a perspective for the young ladies that are considering a career in law enforcement, how it is for you? I mean, obviously you don't know how it is for a male, but can you just speak on that for me?
So for me, you might hear that the male officers won't accept you as a female officer because you can't do as much. But for me, I found that they were very accepting, very willing to help, and knew that I could do just what they can do. Like I said, I ride the motorcycle. It's about a 700-pound machine, and I can whip that thing around. I could probably drive it through this little portion of the room right here. And it's, like I said, it's something that I'm proud of. And the male officers that I work with are also proud of me for doing that. So for me, I had a good experience with most of the male police officers that I work with.
For our chief and our lieutenant, presumably, perhaps you are involved in some employment perspectives. Okay, but I know you certainly are. Can you just let our students understand or know what it is that you're looking for potential law enforcement officers with your community?
I'll tell you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for smart people, right? I think a lot of times you see police officers and you're looking. We think we need big biceps. We need people who are able to think. The biggest weapon that we all have is our ability to communicate, our ability to think about the most appropriate action in any particular situation. Police work can be very physical. The problem is that doing police work doesn't build up your physical capacity. You're not going to get fit doing police work. You might have seen a couple of cops who don't look all that fit, maybe. But it is essential that you continue to work out, you continue to be in shape. Most important thing about showing up to become anywhere in law enforcement is you got to be able to think, and you have to have applied yourself to a couple of books in your life rather than just watch Netflix.
Yeah, I concur with Chief, and Additionally, I think that for us, when we interview individuals, we really try to dive deep into questions about trying to find out who they are. Do they really have a passion for public service? If you're the type of person that, for instance, that you're a bully, well, that's not who you want as a police officer. We want the individual who sees the bullying and recognizes that it's wrong to do, and maybe steps in and says, stop it. That's the kind of compassion or passion that we want. Because you're problem solving, you're communicating with every walk of life that's on the planet. So you have to be good at that, and you have to want to do it. If you don't, this job is not for you.
Okay, so I'm gonna temper the next question kind of with just an experience that I've had. As a criminal justice professor here, I try to explain to the students that what you do in your life matters. A lot of students that come to Mako or any other college and they sit in the class, they're under this preconceived notion, falsely I might add, that whatever they've done as a juvenile has no impact on their future in terms of having had a juvenile adjudication. And I tried to explain to the students that while it may be a matter that has been expunged, that when you go into law enforcement, they can pierce that and find out what you've done, or they can inquire about that. So I just would ask that you speak to the aspect of, eyes are always watching, and at some point there's accountability.
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much covered there are things that you could do now that would prevent you from becoming a police officer. I mean, you're all at the point in your life where you have to behave responsibly. I think there are two real things to consider. One, there are things, as I said, that you can do now that are going to prevent you from becoming a police officer. Two, if you want to become a police officer, there are very few things that you would have done up to this point that would disqualify you, right? We have a lot of people that, right, we're human beings. We don't come from some special place that is pristine and full of nothing bad happening. We are just like anybody else, and we have a range of things in our backgrounds. So if it's something that you're interested in, that you're truly interested in, and I couldn't agree with the Lieutenant more, it's not something that you're really going to dabble in. I think if police work is, or law enforcement in general, something that you're looking for, it is something that it is something that has you rather than you having it. So I would encourage you to move forward if you're interested in coming this direction and start behaving as if one day somebody's going to ask you some really tough questions.
Our process is very, very grueling in order to get hired. I mean, anyone that gets hired by us now, they've earned it. It includes extensive background, polygraph examinations, psychological, physical components. And so when we start the process, everybody looks great. We get resumes, applications, and then it starts a process of the interviews. Okay, well, maybe the interview actually went very well, but then we start another process about background investigation and a polygraph examination. That's where information comes out that we start saying, yeah, that's not good, or maybe it's borderline. And so every case is unique, but I teach on Tuesdays and Thursdays a dual enrollment program at Pope John Paul, and I tell my students all the time, what you do, just like that, what you do now can affect you later on if you plan on continuing in this line of this profession. So absolutely, there's things that can disqualify you. If we have 3 candidates, all things being equal, that's one thing. However, if there's 3 candidates and all appear to be good, but then 1 or 2 candidates have a background that is questionable, or could come back to kind of hurt the agency if in fact the officer's involved in something and the media does their own background, we're probably going to go with the officer that doesn't have it. So just keep that in mind. Every decision you make now could be a decision that you're making for your future.
I'm sorry.
My best advice would be keep your social media in check. Before you or your friends post up a picture on Facebook or Instagram, ask their permission or have them ask your permission to post a picture of you. Be mindful of what you post of yourself. Because I know when I was hired with Lisa Norton, they actually had me log into my Facebook page and they look through it. They look through your photos, they look through your friends, see who you're friends with. It's something that you have to be mindful of.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Longo, one more question, and then I'm going to come to the audience. Can you articulate for our audience what you see or what you have come across as potentially a good fit for emergency management?
Sure. I'm going to stand up because I'm sure I probably can't. So what's a good fit for us? A good fit is very much similar to like law enforcement, a clean background, the desire, and it sounds corny, but the desire to want to help, to do better, to do more. Emergency management, we also have emergency management in our building that trains for disasters. So if you have an interest in it, there's tons of firehouses in your areas, ambulance agencies in your areas that offer these classes. And a lot of these classes through FEMA are free, so you don't have to pay for them. So you can get your feet wet and see if it's something that interests you. I'm going to jump back to like what makes a good candidate for us. Our selection process isn't as intense, but it's very similar. You come in and you take a test with us. You have to be able to type. This isn't typing anymore. People think that they can text like nobody's business, but they can't type 35 to 40 words per minute while you have headsets on, while somebody's calling out a VIN number, a vehicle, registration number, calling out tags, calling out addresses, or measuring your ability to be able to walk and chew gum, do more than one thing at a time, because when you're sitting at a position, you're doing more than one thing at a time. You could be on the 911 call and an officer's calling out a traffic stop, and you need to give them information about a tag within 30 seconds while you're still talking on the phone. You need a clean background because you're running information. You have to have that clean background. If there's something negative on there, it may prevent you from being able to have access to data that the officers may need in the field. You do a personal history questionnaire because we want to know about you. We want to know your schooling, where you've lived, things along those lines. If you've ever been disciplined at work or things along it was probably different than anybody's around. We have taken our group interview and copied basically off of the airline industry. We break you down into 3 different groups and we throw 3 different kinds of scenarios at you. We're spending 3 hours with you because you could fake it for me for 15 minutes in an interview. But if you're spending 3 hours and I get to see you for 3 hours, you're going to have a hard time faking it. And you get to see those people who have a general passion for the job. So I kind of went on a tirade, but it's okay. We offer job shadowing as well, to come in and sit down with us, sit side by side by a call taker, by a dispatcher, see them do the job to see if it's going to be a good fit for you. Because sometimes, you think you might like it until you get into the environment. And then this way, we're not wasting your time. You're not wasting, time with us when we can be going after another candidate.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll open up for questions. Yes.
So I was wondering what type of what would not allow you to become a police officer?
Okay, and just because we're recording, I was asked to repeat the question. The question that was just asked is what types of things would allow you not to be a police officer?
For us, I would say that clearly anything that has relevant grading on it, we're probably not going to hire you. And on top of that, a number of misdemeanors charges probably wouldn't get you hired as well. It really, there's a lot of factors that go into whether or not you're willing to accept some things. Time. Did this happen when you were 15 years old and now you're 25? And what's your life been like since? Have you walked a straight and narrow? You're a model, citizen, things like that. So that plays a big part. Or are you only 20 years old when this happened a year and a half ago? So it's hard to give you an exact answer because it does vary.
I just want to add, I think one thing that's important to look at is how would you maximize your chances of let's say you want to be a police officer. How do you maximize your chances of becoming a police officer? Well, it's not by getting arrested, right? That's minus points. It's not by being lazy. That's minus points. It's not by failing out of school, right? There are things that you can do that are going to increase your odds because it's extremely competitive. You could be, if I'm hiring 10 people and 9 of those 10 people were involved in some sort of misconduct in their past, whether or not they were arrested, I'm going to take that one person that is highly qualified and doesn't have a bunch of baggage in their background. So I think it's important to think about both what is going to keep me out, but what's most likely going to make me a really good candidate for a position that is extremely competitive. We pay people a lot of money. It's a good career. You can retire young, do cool stuff. We send you all over the place to training. It's a really good job. So you're never going to walk into anybody's police department and, hey, I'm interested. They're like, yeah, we'll sign you. No, it doesn't work like that. You're going to be competing with a lot of people. So you're going to have to look and see what kinds of things can I do to get myself to the top of it, right? And what kinds of things do I need to make sure I'm not doing so that there are things that are disqualifying me. I think that story is good. We're going to sit you down and I want to look at your Facebook. I want to see your Instagram and see how crazy you are, right? Because if you're too crazy, we can't use you. So start to think along the lines of making yourself a really attractive candidate.
And just to add to that, summary of it is driving. It may sound very simple, but if you have a horrible history as a driver, suspended license, red light, speeding, and is consistent throughout your history since you started driving, that's going to be a problem because you're driving a police car and you're responding in an emergency fashion a lot of times. So someone who's prone to accidents, that could be a problem for you moving forward too. Something as simple as.
Okay, other questions, please. Yes.
I guess one big thing is the police academy is a big thing. Police academy teaches you a lot of things, but what are some things that the police academy doesn't prepare you for that you need to learn once you get a job?
Okay, so the question is, outside of the police academy, what things do you not get there that you need in terms of actually taking on a law enforcement position?
I would say you learn the book aspect of it. You learn the physical aspect of it, but you don't really learn like the mental and emotional part of it. A lot of calls that you go to might have an effect on you that is negative. So you need to have those outlets such as exercise, painting, cooking, whatever it is, to let those things go. You know what I mean? Have your friends, your family, support systems. They might touch on that a little bit in the academy, but that's something that you have to really keep in touch with, even as your career goes on.
One of the things that I stress to my students is I can teach you book. I can teach you how it is to be an attorney, what it's like to be in court, how it is to cross-examine, but I can't teach you real world. And so real world is something that you're going to get. You're kind of out there not knowing what the consequences are going to be or what you're going to be facing. So I certainly have never been in law enforcement, But I can imagine that at every call that you go to, you don't know any more than what you know. And so when you get there, it's a matter of dealing with the circumstances and your ability to be able to communicate, to be able to deal with whatever the circumstances are in a way that's helping the community and also putting, your agency, your department up front and in a positive light for the community. Questions? One of the things that I want you to recognize is that you don't always have the opportunity to have these distinguished individuals with these titles in front of you to ask them questions. And what we don't want you to do is leave here and say, oh, I wish I would have asked, or I should have asked, or I'm curious about, because they're right here to answer your questions. Yes, I knew I would prompt at least one hand.
If you have had a adjudicated felony, let's say 2015, and let's say you want to apply when you turn 22, what would that look like?
Hypothetically.
The issue that you come up against with answering a question like that is it might be different for each of our police departments. I'm going to, if I'm making that decision, I'm going to look at the whole person. I'm going to look to see, well, what did you do? I'm going to look to see where you came from, right? Some people are born, I don't know where anybody's from here. Some people are born in some neighborhoods in which there is no excuse to act up, right? Everything's nice there. Nobody does anything bad. You know, the opportunities in your life to do good stuff. Other people aren't so fortunate. Some of us are born into neighborhoods that are problematic, and the neighborhood encourages you to do things that might prevent you from becoming something that requires a pristine background. If that's the case, I'm going to consider that, right? If you came from the hood and you did something that everybody else was doing, and you got yourself together and you got your life together, and now you want to be a police officer, I'm going to consider you. I don't, but I can't say that to anybody else.
One of the things that I'll say, having spoken to law enforcement, particularly in Philadelphia, what they have said when confronted with a similar question is one of the most important things is to be honest about it, to be upfront, because you may try to hide and say, oh, this is going to eliminate me, but I assure you, 9 times out of 10, they already know the answer. So you need to fess up to it and hit it square on the head and say, I've developed, these were the circumstances. So you can't run from your past. It's always going to be there. So just hit it square on the head and be honest and truthful about it. Yes. Right.
So you were talking about how the polygraph is part of the process of being part of this. What are your opinions on the reliability of polygraphs and the ability to pass them using drugs?
Okay, so the question is, what is the opinion of the panel regarding polygraph exams and the ability to pass them or the reliability?
Well, I'm not a polygraph examiner. However, the polygraph examiner that we do use is a very experienced individual that works for the county in homicides. They've been very successful for us in identifying areas of issues or problems that didn't come out in maybe physical background check. So the reliability of it, I would say, is pretty high based on who we use. But I really can't speak to that on a more educational level because I'm just not an examiner. You hire somebody else to come. Yeah.
I would say, if you're ever in a situation where you are in the process of being hired and you're going to take a polygraph test, be honest. It might be embarrassing to you, but in that situation, you're with one other person. You're hooked up to the machine, so it's it'll be more beneficial to you to just be upfront about it, as uncomfortable as it could be.
I'll just say the lie is worse than the drug use, right? We will disqualify no questions about it. For the lie, I'm gonna get it. For the drug use, well, we can talk about it, right? If we got rid of everybody who has used some drug in their life, there'd be nobody in the cop car, right? It'd be sitting there all, it's just empty, doing nothing. So the lie is what we'll get.
Yeah, we're not on purpose.
Questions? Yes, sir.
If you could pick one or two things of the people that you look at and hire and turn down, one or two areas where you think there would be a need for improvement, just in terms of skills that they come in, what one or two things would you look at for that, just in terms of the people that you see coming in front of you?
Okay, the question is, what are one or two factors that you would look at when interviewing individuals to try to have them improve to get on a law enforcement agency or department?
For me, it should be, can the person articulate themselves? Are they good writers? You know, I hate to break the news, but what you see on TV of all the excitement and everything, you know, for every one incident, you're probably looking at a number of hours of writing. Unfortunately, I've seen some 4-year degrees come through, and you think, okay, well, you know, 4-year degree, they must have done some writing in college, and all of a sudden you see one of their reports, and you're thinking, this looks like about an 8th or 9th grade level writing here. So writing and communicating is a huge part of what we do every day. Every day. The excitement comes. Don't get me wrong, those calls do come. But if you can't articulate why you did what you did the right way, you're going to lose that case. You're not doing any justice for the families who are victims of that case, and you're not really representing yourself or the department very well. So those are the two areas I would say.
Can I just add something, because I think this is missing from a big portion of the candidates that I've interviewed. Be passionate about what you want. You know, be enthusiastic. Be somebody who sits down and says, I really want to do this. I really want this job. The interview process for us, right? It might be grueling for you, but for me, it's super boring sometimes when you sit with people that they don't seem sure that this is the thing that they want to do. If you're passionate, if you actually say, hey, pick me, I want this, I prepared myself, you're going to have an edge, because most people are sitting across the table lacking enthusiasm.
And on that note, I think to kind of put an explanation point behind it, you're the only one who can sell you. You're a piece of paper that comes across through your exam, but when you get the opportunity to be in front of the chief of police, the lieutenant, whoever is on that panel, you have to sell you. You have to be the one who represents you, because when the interview is over, it's all left there. There's no second opportunities generally. So you have to take the position that this may be the one and only opportunity that I have to explain to them why they want me. And you have to have that attitude, because it will permeate not only in your body language, but hopefully in your verbiage. And another thing that I do want to kind of piggyback off of as well is the writing component. That is critical. And I teach students that, I've ultimately written letters of recommendation or refused to write some to the state police, to local municipalities, because they're not ready for many reasons. And believe it or not, by the time you graduate from high school, there's the presumption from our perspective as professors that you can write. Well, that's not always the case. And so the writing is important. And I'll tell you from the other perspective why it's important. I, as a defense attorney, having practiced for many years, I may have represented someone who the case was not a winnable case at all. It was a dead dog loser, and as we would say, we're going to walk this dog around the courtroom. It's not a winnable case. However, when I look at your report, and you didn't take time to proofread it, to write it correctly, you've given me an opportunity now to be able to find something in there and say, well, wait a minute, that's not what you put on your report. That's not how it's articulated. I couldn't tell that information from what you wrote down. And that may be what allows me to win the case that should not have been won. So being able to write not only is it beneficial to you as an individual, but career purposes. And we have all, chiefs that come and meet with us on a regular basis and say, look, can you please stress the writing component? So we've added more writing into the criminal justice department because it's really important. And I'm not saying you're not getting it in high school, because that's not what I want you to walk away with, but we need you to make sure that the writing is where it needs to be for purposes of down the road. Yes, sir.
We have 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes.
By writing, do you mean by like physical handwriting, or do you mean like typing a report that
I would say both.
grammar that should be?
I would say both. There's the times where our computers have been down, literally I worked in a department that didn't have handwriting. So you have to be able to write and to type. Understand the audience that you're reporting to. For me, it would be my sergeant or my chief or administrator. It has to be clear.
Also, let's say that I'm currently not good at vocabulary and handwriting, but would you be able to do something like, let's say, if you own a typewriter, would you be able to use something like that to write a report? Just out of curiosity.
There's one typewriter left in our police department that actually is not even in use. It's up in the attic, you know, and I go up there and I'm thinking, oh, I remember a typewriter and I used to use one. That's just in my agency. I'm not sure if Morristown has typewriters available, but if there's one available, I don't see a problem with
If you have really bad handwriting, work on it.
Yeah.
Work on it.
Practice.
That's something that I do have. I've been working on since I was like 5, but still.
Keep going. You got life left to live. You can work on it. Don't give up. That's another thing we're looking for. We're looking for people that are going to build on what they have.
Who are tenacious, who don't give up and continue working.
Exactly. So whatever you're working with right now, make it better.
I'm also curious about what's your take on, like, I was asking police officer earlier about alcohol age. Let's say, like, I was suggesting that you should be 21 to buy, but could start drinking at 18. As in, like, you can't buy, but let's say your parents allowed you to drink so you can build up a tolerance and it not be a super big thing so you don't binge drink like they do in Europe.
Yeah.
What would be your take on that?
My take on that is you are looking at other ways to disqualify yourself from doing anything in your life. That's my take on it. Right? Whether or not it's legal is a separate question. If you want to compete with other people that are interested in serious things in their life, you can drink all you want. You're going to find yourself not being able to pay your bills. That's my take.
I've been to Europe many times. I've been to England to train. And the one police department that I went to, their cells were filled with young kids that were all just intoxicated. And they lock them up for the night and they let them go. Not a good thing. Not a good thing.
Thank you. Any other questions over here?
Are there any seniors in the room? Are there still any seniors? All right, so just a tip when you guys are out and applying for a job and you go for an interview. I don't know if this is still taught, but this was taught back in the Stone Age where I came from. When you go for an interview, if you're going into law enforcement, when you're done with that interview, take 5 minutes, sit down, write a letter, a thank you letter to them. Talk about something that you talked about. It shows that you're engaged. It shows that passion for the job. And they're going to remember you over somebody who doesn't think to send that letter. I don't know if you guys would agree.
True. That is very true.
It's lost in translation a lot.
I'd like to add, just be yourself. I know going to interviews, I've been to many, where I'm sitting there and I'm just so nervous because I'm worried about saying the right thing, answering the right question with the right answer, and I get so worked up over that, and I'm forgetting to be myself and relax. I'm kind of goofy, so I was kind of goofy during my interview. I don't know if departments like that or not, but I mean, that's what worked for me.
We do. We want to see personality. Like the chief, what he said, passion and personality. Are you going to be a good fit for the rest of the officers in this agency? The job is very stressful, and humor is, almost a necessity. Just if you're not if you don't like humor, are you going to be a good fit? Is what we're really looking for. Personality is important.
Any other questions before we close out? Yes.
I want to ask, what characteristics you must have to survive in this law enforcement career? As far as you said, be yourself, of course, and have passion and stuff like that. But what's the one major thing you must have? Going to, let's say you go to a scene and you see a dead person or got shot or bleeding half to death or something like that. What? I don't know. What mentality you have to be able to deal with that, as far as just seeing somebody dying or getting rushed to the hospital or anything like that. I don't know if I explained that really correctly.
I think two things will get you through your career. One, being the kind of person that is willing to continually develop yourself, right? That you're going to encounter things that are extremely difficult, and you've got to find your own your own positive coping mechanism, so that you're able to continue to navigate a tough environment. So, make sure that you never get wherever you are now. Make sure you build on that. The second thing is, make sure that you're somebody who has compassion that you're bringing to work, and that compassion is going out into the community, and you're also being compassionate with yourself, right? It's hard. It's emotionally difficult to be a police officer. It's emotionally difficult to come to work and deal with most of the people that we interact with are not at their best, right? They're angry or they're sad, or, they're not at their best. So deliver compassion to the community and be compassionate to yourself. Be willing to be kind to yourself as a police officer, and allow yourself to be okay with being afraid or upset or hurt or what have you.
Also, if you do run into situations where you go to that call and it's just a nightmare, and it affects you, don't be afraid to ask for help. I feel like there's a stigma with police officers that, we got to be tough, we got to be like this and that. If it affects you that bad, you got to ask for help, and you'll get help. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There are things in this job that you cannot unsee. This is the reality of it. It is unnatural. Most people in their lives who aren't in our line of work or military or EMTs aren't used to seeing what we see, and it will take a toll on you. But again, you can't bottle it up. And I think the mental health professionals now are recognizing the need and are putting support groups out there for police officers, rather than just dismissing them and saying, well, just suck it up. This is what you signed up for. It's just like, being in the military and PTSD and things like that. So you can't bottle it in, but you also have to have, like the chief mentioned earlier, about release mechanisms, working out, or maybe it was you, that, hobbies outside of the job. You have to have the kind of, because people aren't calling you because their kids are making A's, on birthday parties. They're calling you, like the chief said, when they're at probably their worst, or they're victims of a crime. So you have to counterbalance that in your own personal life, just so that is nothing that's going to just keep eating at you, and you're thinking about it all the time. You need the positive aspects of what life has to offer as well. And exercise is a great avenue for that. It releases a lot of stress.
Okay, so any other questions? All right, well, you guys have been great. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause for our today. Thank you.